So let's remove my IP address from here and see if that goes. Okay, so it's gone. So if we've got the IP address in, we're producing the result found, otherwise we're not. So let's just take it all out first of all. Okay, so if the IP address has been found, we don't want to do anything. So if it hasn't been found, we want to increment the value of the database in the count.txt file. So now what we can do is create a handle to open this file. So we're opening we'll create a variable called file name, and that's going to be count.txt. So we're opening count.txt, so we're just substituting that in there, and we're opening this to read in the value. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to grab this data, so we can say current equals f read, and we're reading from the handle, and we need a size, to specify a size. So as per the last example in the non-unique hit counter, we used the file size function, and we specified file name. So now what we can do is we can close it here using the fclose function, and we can echo out current just so we know what we're doing. So if the address hasn't been found, we're going to echo out 0, which is the current value in count.txt. Now what we want to do underneath this, we don't want to echo that out anymore. Now what we want to do underneath this is say current inc equals current plus 1, so we're incrementing the value. And remember, this is all while the IP address has not been found in the database or in the count.txt file. Now what we want to do is we want to open up a new handle. So we want to fopen, we want to open file name, this time to write. So if you've dealt with file handling, you'll understand this. If not, go and have a look at file handling, and this will clearly make sense to you. We then want to write, and we want to write to this current handle, and we want to write the value of current inc. Then we want to close the file, so we're closing handle, and therefore the value has been updated because we're taking this current inc, we're adding 1 to the value of current, and then we're rewriting it into the file. So write is going to overwrite everything. So let's just double check and see if this works. So at the moment it's 0. I'm going to refresh the page, and hopefully, well, we've got a message here saying the file count.txt has been changed, reload. We click yes, and that's been updated to 1. So let's just close that for now. I'm going to refresh again, and you can see that if we open up count.txt, it's changed to 2. Now this is all well and good, but at the moment it's not unique. So what we want to do is after we've inputted, after we've written to this file, we want to open the ip.txt file, and we want to append an IP address onto the end of it. So what we want to do here is create a new handle, and this is fopen, and this time we want to open, let's go up here, we can just specify that in here actually. We want to open ip.txt, and we want to open that to append onto it. And what this means is we're going to be adding onto it. We're not going to be overwriting like we do with the W, we're not going to be reading like we do with the R, but we're appending to the end of the file. Now what we can do is we can say fwrite, and we're writing to handle, and we want to write the current IP address of the user, which is IP address here. So if we come down, IP address. Then what we want to do is we want to add a line break onto the end of it by a backslash and n. You've noticed I've used double quotation marks. This n won't be processed as a new line if you use single quotation marks. So if it's not writing to a new line for any reason, it might be because you haven't used double quotation marks. And now we can fclose, and we can close this handle. So we've got a lot of repetitive code here, but perhaps you could come up with a function if you want to shorten this code up. So now we've written to the file, we're pretty much done, because we've written back to the file the IP address, and now next time when we check, our IP address is already stored, so we won't be carrying out the rest of this block, if that makes sense. So we'll come to count.txt, make sure that's 0, come to IP, make sure there's nothing in there. Now if I was to refresh, okay, we're obviously not getting any output. Now let's open up count.txt. You can see that's now at value 1. Let's close that. Let's open up ip.txt, and you can see that my IP address is written in there. Now let's close this and try and refresh again. So we've refreshed again. Now normally without the with a non-unique hit counter, this value would have incremented here, but because we've done this loop here, the IP address should have already been detected. Found will be set to true, and therefore this block here will not be run. Sorry, this block here will not be run. So we're not going to be updating this, and we're not going to be adding the IP to the file. So let's open up count.txt. This is still at value 1 because we've already recognized that our IP address has visited this website. If we open up ip.txt, the IP address is still there, nothing's been added because this has been detected, therefore our value has not been updated. So this is a really simple way to create a unique hit counter. The code has been reused to some extent here, so you could perhaps come up with a function that would allow you to combine these and write particular data to them. But for now I'm not going to be doing that because this video is just about creating the hit counter. It's totally up to you to tidy up the code from what you've learned with dealing with functions and arguments, but for now this is the short and sharp unique hit counter. Hi, this is Alex from phpacademy.org, back with another PHP tutorial for the new Boston. Now in this video we're going to be talking about MD5 encryption, or rather generating an MD5 hash from a string. Now if you don't know what MD5 is, I'll take a couple of seconds to just explain. MD5 is a form of encryption, and a hash is generated from a string that's given. And in PHP we have a function called MD5, and what this does is if you supply a string in here, it will convert this string to an MD5 hash. So let's take a look at a couple of examples. Let's create a string that might possibly be a password. So I'm going to give this a value of password. So our password essentially is password. Now if we wanted to encrypt this, we could simply echo out or create a new variable, say string hash, and I'm going to make this equal to MD5, and then in the bracket I'm going to supply the string data that I want to convert, or rather encrypt. Now I'm just going to come down here and echo out string hash. Okay, so now let's take a look at password, what it looks like with an when it's been hashed. Pass error in line 8, okay. Oh yeah, sorry, semicolon on the end of there. So let's refresh. Okay, so what you see now is the hash representation of the string password. Now, however much we refresh this, it's going to stay exactly the same. So let's keep refreshing, it's exactly the same. So we call this one-way encryption. This string, this hash, cannot be decrypted back to normal text. The only way we can do this is take an input and match it to the actual hashed version of the input. So for example, if you had a password stored in a database with this value, which we are going to come on to talk about in a minute and give a short example, if you had a password stored as a hash and the user typed in, say, Alex as the password, the hash for Alex wouldn't match the hash for this, therefore the password would be incorrect. Now if we were to hash password again, if password was entered via user input and we hashed password again, it would match this. Therefore we would assume, well, we'd know that the password is the same. So if this doesn't make sense, I'm going to create a new file and I'm going to copy and paste this hash over into this file. Let's paste it in there. And we're going to call this hash password.txt. So obviously this would be an unsecure way of storing a password because someone would be able to access it. However, what I'm going to do now is from index.php is I'm going to let the user enter a value. So we're going to create a form that allows a user to enter a value. Then when the form is submitted, we're going to open hash.txt, we're going to look at the contents, and we're going to see if the password matches. Bear in mind this is equal to password. So if we were to type in Alex, the password would be incorrect. However, if we were to type in password, this would be correct. So let's begin creating, well, we'll get rid of this first of all. And let's begin creating our form. So form action equals index.php. The method is going to be post. Remember, we're posting a password, so we want to keep it out of sight. So we're going to use post. And when you are sort of using login forms or register forms, you should always use the post method as well, because we've got a lot of data to process, as well as we wanting it to look as clean as possible. So now I'm going to create a label called password, or some text called password, and the input type would usually be password, but for the purposes of this tutorial I'm going to use text, just so we can see the text that we're typing in. And the name of this is going to be user underscore password. Okay, so let's break down a couple of lines and create a submit button, and the value of this is going to be submit. So let's just refresh the page and check that looks okay. Okay, so we've got the option to type in the password here. You can see what I'm typing, whereas if we were to use the password type, which you'd obviously always use for passwords, then we wouldn't be able to see the data. So let me just change this back to text. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is up here we want to check that a password has been entered into the box and the form itself has been submitted. So we do this, we start an if statement, and this here is going to be the block that runs if this is evaluated to true. So the first thing we need to check is if the input type has been set, therefore the form has been submitted. So we can say is set post user underscore password, and we're also going to check if the password isn't blank, so we're going to say is not empty, not a semicolon there, sorry, and then we're going to specify this post again, so user password. Okay, so presuming that the form has been set and the password has been entered, we're now going to echo out something just to confirm this to us as programmers before we continue to the next step. So let me type, let me just refresh the page first of all. Let me just type password in here. And I'm going to click submit. And you can see that we've got this little message, confirmation message coming back. However, if I submit it without any data in, nothing happens. So the user is going to have to type in a password. We could also, let's say, else here. We could echo, please enter a password. Okay, so obviously we're not going to be echoing out okay to the user, that was just for our benefit. Now the next stage is to set a new variable with this password value in. It's not necessary, but it just allows us to program a lot quicker. So we're going to say user underscore password. You can name this variable anything you like, and that is going to equal $_post and then user password. So we're just creating a shorthand way to reference this posted variable. If we reference this outside of this if statement, we may come across an undefined index error. So we reference this inside here. Okay, so the next thing to do is to open up this file called hash.txt, and we want to grab this value here and then compare it to the password that's entered. Now we're obviously not directly comparing it, because if we were directly comparing it, the user would have to type this password hash in. Or if we were storing it as plain text, we wouldn't have to do anything to it, because that would avoid the point of talking about MD5 hashes. Okay, so the next thing, like I said, we need to do is open the file. So I'm going to create a variable called handle, and this is going to be equal to fopen, and we are opening, let's just create a new variable here called file name so we can reference this as well. So the file name is hash.txt. So for the arguments for fopen, we need the file name specified and the method, the way we want to open it. So we're opening it just to read the data in, so we just need to pop an R in there. Now what we want to do is we want to create a new variable with the file password. So this variable is essentially going to equal the hash that's inside here. So file password is equal to fread, and then we need to supply a couple of arguments here. The first argument is where we're reading from, which is the handle, and the second is the file, the amount of data we want to open. So the file, we want the entire file size. So we use this file size function here as opposed to specifying an amount of data in bytes. So file size, and then we want to just reference that back to our file name. So what we've done so far is we've created a reference for our hash.txt, and we've opened that using the fopen function with read properties on that, so we can read it. Now we've created a new variable called file password, which will contain this hash, so we can do something with it in our program. And we've used the fread function, and we've specified that we want to read data from this file, this specific file here, which I've named handle. And then we're opening the full file size of the hash.txt. So let's just put up an echo in front of here, in front of there, so we echo out this data. So let's just type anything in here, it doesn't really matter at this stage, and click submit. You see that we've now gained this hash from this hash.txt file. So now we can do something with it. Now what we need to do is we need to hash the password that the user has entered. So this user password needs to be converted to a hash in order to compare it to another hash. So we can do this just by simply saying md5 and wrapping that in the md5 function. Now the password is automatically converted to an md5 hash, and if we were to compare them, they'd either equal something completely different or the same, as they're now both hashes. So we can create an if statement, and we can say if user password is equal to file password, do something, else we want to run this block, so we want to do something else. So obviously the else is going to be incorrect password. Oh, password, there we go. And otherwise we're going to give the user a confirmation message that their password was okay. So password okay. So now let's run the program, or our script rather. So we're back to here. Please enter a password. Right, okay, the reason it's saying that automatically is because we have this check in here as well as this check. So even if we haven't submitted the form, we're still processing please enter a password. This is an easy fix. You just need to break it up into two different if statements, one inside another. But for now we'll just go ahead and type in a password. So I'm going to type in Alex as the password and click submit. Now we've received the error incorrect password. Now if we were to type password, what's going to happen now is we are hashing the user password, we're hashing this value here, password, and we are converting it to an MD5 hash. Then we're comparing it to the MD5 hash already stored in hash. Therefore, password hashed is equal to this. Therefore, the password matches. So let's just click submit, and it says password OK. Now, why do we use password hashes in the first place, this MD5 encryption? What's the point in using it? We could just define a password variable inside this file where no one has access to it. No one can view the source of the web page when we're processing in PHP because everything's done server side. So how do we explain why we need MD5 hashes? Now the reason is, even though MD5 isn't the most secure form of hashing, and it isn't the most secure form of encryption, it can be cracked easily by checking using a brute force method. However, let's just say you had a database set up and there were lots and lots of usernames and passwords. So you had lots of users on your website and you were using a database. Now, what happens if someone gains unauthorized access to your database? What's going to happen is they are going to be able to see all your passwords if they're unencrypted. Let's just say you had a website that let people, say, make a payment or was to store sensitive information. If you were storing a password and someone had access to your database and they could view users' passwords, you may have, let's just open a new text file, you may have a column called username and a column called password, and I could have Alex here and I could have, say, pass123. We could have another user called Billy and the password could be I love PHP. Now, if I was to break into this this database, I can already see the user's passwords. Therefore, I can go straight over to the website and I can log in using these passwords. However, if these were MD5 encrypted, for example, look like this, it just so happens that these two users are going to have the same password. But if it looked like this, you know, someone that has unauthorized access to anywhere you store these will say, oh, well, I can't convert these because remember I said earlier in the tutorial that MD5 is one-way encryption. There is no way that you can return this to its original value. And that's what we call one-way encryption. If I was to create an encryption method that, let's say, made A equal to 1, it made or let's do this another way, or made B equal to 2, or C equal to 3, and my password was BCA, and I encrypted it as 231, you would be able to reverse this encryption. So you'd be able to say 231. Well, I know the algorithm that's used to encrypt this, so I know that 2 is equal to B, I know that 3 is equal to C, and I know that 1 is equal to A, so I now know that the password is BCA. However, MD5 doesn't work like that. There's no way of converting this back. So you're protecting against your users and against your website. And if you haven't already looked at user databases and MySQL databases, that will come later. But we'll always be storing them as MD5 hashes, or in most cases anyway. For tutorial purposes, some people, and I certainly might not, but in a real life situation you must always store a password with at least the level of encryption of MD5. Okay, so that's about it for MD5. I hope you learned something, and remember to always encrypt passwords with one-way algorithms. Hi, this is Alex from phpacademy.org, and this is another video tutorial for the new Boston. Now, if you've watched some of my other tutorials that I've created, you will see that I'm now in a different environment and I'm not using context for this tutorial. Now, there's a reason for this. When we send mail in PHP using the mail function, it's not going to work from my local server because I don't have the support to send the email on my local server. And you may find this as well. You can set this up, but I won't be talking about how to do this on a local server. As with most paid hosting, you will have access to be able to send mail using this function. So let's go straight ahead and send a basic email. So I'm going to create a file now called index.php. I'm going to click create new file. That's created that in here for me. Now I'm going to click on code editor so we can start editing this file. Okay, so obviously the first thing we want to do is create PHP tags. Now, the mail function basically looks like this, and it takes typically, in the case that we're going to do, 4 parameters. One after that is optional. I think it takes 5 parameters in total, but you can go to the PHP manual to look that up. Now, we need to create a few variables in order to put into this function. And the first one is 2. This is the email address that the email is going to be sent to. So in this case, I'm going to say alex@phpacademy.org. This is my press and business email address only. So the next is the subject. So the subject is going to be this is an email. Now we have the body, so this is going to equal some text that we're going to have in the body of the email. And finally we have the headers. Now the headers, in this example I'm going to show you, I'm going to only work with basic headers. We are just going to use the from field. So what we're going to say is we're going to say from, and then we're going to say someone at phpacademy.org. This is the name that is displayed, or the email address that's displayed from. So if I was, say, sending a mail to someone after they'd registered, say, with the website and the registration process has completed, I could send it from no reply at phpacademy.org, or I could send it from admin at phpacademy.org. The email address doesn't necessarily have to exist. So let's specify a body. Let's say we're going to come down here and we'll start saying, in fact we'll go up here, we'll say this is a test email. I'm going to use \n to go to a new line, and then \n now to go 2 new lines, so I'm starting a new paragraph. Hope you got it. Okay, so now what I need to do to actually send the email is use the mail function and then pass these arguments to actually send the email. So the first one you need to specify is who it's to, so the recipient's email address. Then you need to specify the subject of the email. So our subject is this is an email. Then you need to specify the body. So our body here is equal to this is a test email. We go down a new paragraph, which is equivalent to 2 lines, and then we say hope you got it. Now what we need to do is give the headers, and there's plenty of information that we can pack into here, but for now this simple mail function tutorial, just giving you an idea of how it works, I'm just saying from someone. So this is the name that is going to be displayed when we pick up the email. Now this is all well and good, but what happens if the mail function doesn't work? Well, I'm going to enclose this in an if statement and say if mail, then do something here. So I'm going to come in and say email has been sent. Then I can say else there was an error sending the email. Just in case the mail function fails for one or more reasons, we can process this and say echo there was an error sending the email. Otherwise, email has been sent. We could even say email has been sent to, and then specify the to variable that we've created up here. So we need to run and test this now. So I'm going to log into my email account, and we can send this afterwards. So I've logged into my email, and I'm using my email client here, which is Squirrel Mail. Now what I can do is I can save changes on this page, and our file has been saved successfully. Now what we can do is we can come in here and just refresh. We've got an unexpected t variable on line 4, so let's go check this error out before we proceed. So let's go down to line 4. That's the reason, is because I have on line 3 I didn't incorporate a semicolon at the end of my line. So let's save changes again and let's refresh. Okay, so we've got a confirmation message. Email has been sent to alex@phpacademy.org. Let's go over to my email client and click back onto my inbox. Okay, so you can see that in bold a new email has popped up, and this is from someone at phpacademy.org. Now the subject is this is a test email, which does correspond to what we specified in our variable here. This is a test email. So if we click on it and go in further, we can see that it says this is a test email, NN, hope you got it. Okay, so my mistake, this has not correctly processed, and the reason being, I can already tell you the reason being, is because we haven't specified this in double quotation marks, and it hasn't processed these because we're not using double quotation marks. So what we could do is we could append on double quotation marks and then back to normal again. There. Okay. Or you can just enclose this completely in quotation marks. It's entirely up to you. Okay, so let's save the changes again and resend the email. Let's refresh. Okay, email has been sent. Again, we get the same confirmation message. Let's go back to our inbox. Okay, we've got that again. Let's click on it. And you can see that now we've incorporated the new line break. Okay, so what happens if we want to specify a name by this? As you can see that things like Twitter and people per hour have already sent their email address through with a name attached. So we want to change this to be more user friendly. Oh no, we don't need to do that. That was my test notes from earlier. We need to come into this page and we simply need to say PHP Academy there, and in fact no we don't, we need to say from PHP Academy, and then in a less than and then a greater than sign we put the email address. So let's save the changes there. Let's go back and refresh our page so we resend the email back to Squirrel Mail email client, and you can now see, oh, we need to log in again. Okay, so I've logged back in and you can see that the email is from PHP Academy this time with the same subject and then the content of the email. Now you've probably noticed that we've got a bit of extra white space just before our message, and this is because when we don't need that again. When we are editing this, it's automatically going to take into account, I think, I'm not too sure this is correct of me, but we're automatically going to take into account the space before this. So if we put this on a new line and we save, I think what that will do is it will get rid of that space before. Let's just double check. I'm not entirely sure. It might just be this email client. Okay, yeah, it is. So if you find things like too many spaces down or anything like that, this body string is going to be taken literally. So I could say this is a test email, and then hope you got it. If I was to go down, I am actually creating myself a new space, but it's always better to use these \n line breaks. Okay, so that is the very basics of sending an email with PHP. Like I said, if you're having trouble using your local server, like if you have an XAMPP installation, then try to upload a PHP file or create a PHP file, as I have, on a text editor on an actual paid hosting service and a server that has the send mail activated. Then you'll be able to use the mail function within PHP. Hi, this is Alex from phpacademy.org, and I'm back with another video for the new Boston. Now, in the previous video we looked at sending email using PHP mail function. Now if you haven't already watched that video, I recommend you go back and watch it before you watch this, as this video is going to deal with submitting a contact form. So for example, you've seen websites where you have a contact us page, and you fill in your information and you click the submit button. Now this then sends, well, it could do, I mean, we could be storing values in a database, but for now we're going to be dealing with sending an email address, sending the message to a specific email address, and that's how we're going to receive it. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create our form. So let's go ahead and say form action equals something and method equals something, and then we end with form. So the form action is going to be index.php, so we're going to be submitting back to the same page. This is going to submit it in post data, so we're going to submit a large amount of data that we don't want to be shown in the URL bar, so we use the post method to send the data in our form. So let's go ahead and set up the form before we start processing our script, or inside PHP. So the first field I'm going to create is name, and and I'm going to break down after this, and I'm going to say input type is text because we're taking a text value for the name, and the name of this is contact name.
Okay, now we're going to break down a couple of times, and we're going to say email address, and we're going to break, and we're going to say input type equals text again, name equals contact email. Now, I'm not going to specify things like telephone fields. This is up to you to input for yourself. But the next thing I'm going to do is message. So we're just going to be passing 3 fields through PHP that are going to be sent to our email address. So now message, we're going to put a text area. So a text area is just a large text area that can be typed in. So text area. I'm going to give this a name of contact text, and we're going to set the rows equal to something and the cols equal to something there, so the columns. So we've got 6 here and say 30 here. That should give us a large enough space to submit our data. So we're going to go on the presumption that all of our fields are required by this contact form. So obviously you can chop and change, and within PHP we can make the relevant checks. But for now I'm going to do a couple of breaks down, and I'm going to create our submit button. So it's a type submit, and the value is going to be send. So let's go ahead and save this page, and we can preview this in our browser. So I'm going to refresh the page, so you can see we've got a pretty standard looking contact form. Now it's obviously up to you to change the design of this. You can obviously implement CSS if you know how, pop this into your own design. So for now I'm just starting with the most basic layout. So we can type information into here, and what we want to do is we want to enter different email addresses and our messages, and we're going to test out, well, we're going to fill in all fields first of all. This is what we need to make sure will happen. So let's go over to back to our file and edit this. Okay, so inside PHP, when this is submitted, the first thing that we want to do is we want to check to see if the form's been submitted. So we need to check that each element is set. So we use the isSet construct, and we say isSet $_post, because remember we're submitting these variables using the post variable, so post method, so we pick them up by $_post. And then inside here we need to specify the first variable that we're passing, and this is contact name. Then we need to say and, so we apply the and operator. So we're saying if the contact name is set, and and is set $_post, and we need to now specify the next field that we're submitting, and that's contact email. Just a word of warning before I continue, we're not actually going to be dealing with email validation, and the reason for this is it's too big and too unnecessary for this tutorial. So there will be another tutorial on my tutorials for the new Boston that will deal with email validation. So go over and have a look at that, and you'll be able to apply this to your contact form. Okay, so the last field that we need to check for is the content itself. So this is, this is no different. So what we just need to do is say $_post, and we need to specify our contact _text. Now my text editor online here seems to have gone a bit funny, so I'm just going to save this file, and I'm going to close that, and I'm going to reopen it in our plain text editor. So we're going to have to deal with plain text for now, but that doesn't really matter. Okay, so now what we need to do is we've checked if we've set the contact name, we've checked if we've set the contact email, and we've checked if we've set the contact text. This doesn't mean that the value actually equals anything. So the next thing we need to do is we need to check whether these fields are empty. Considering they're all required, we need them all to equal at least one value. So we are first of all going to set them into their own variable, so we can use them a lot easier inside of our if statement. So what I'm going to do is create an individual variable for each one. So contact _name. This can obviously be anything you like, and then we say equals $_post, and then we say contact name. So what we're doing is we're just taking this variable here and we're putting it into a contact name. Now you might be asking, why aren't we doing this outside of our if statement? And the reason we're not doing this outside of our if statement is because this post might not be set. And we're going to get what's called an undefined index or an undefined variable error, because we're assuming this value exists before we've checked that they're set. So remember to always declare your variables inside after you've checked for them being set. So now I'm going to say contact email equals $_post contact email. So we're doing exactly the same thing for each value that we're submitting. Contact underscore text equals $_post contact underscore text. Okay, so we've now got all 3 variables from our form. Let's just go ahead and echo these out. We can put an echo in front of here. And what this is going to do is just going to echo out each value. So if we click Save Changes and we come into here, let's go ahead and click Send. You can see that the form has been submitted, but nothing's happened with regards to PHP because we've checked using this isSet language construct. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to type Alex for my name. I'm going to type, let's say, my email address in here. And then I can just type a small message in here, so hi, for example. Now let's click Send and see what happens. Okay, so you can see that the first variable has been picked up here, which is in the name field, and then here we've picked up the email address, and then here we've picked up the message. So let's go back to our editor, and let's get rid of this echo parts here because we don't actually want to echo them out to the user. Now after this we can check for their existence, so we can check if they equal nothing. So let's go if not empty contact name and, so we're using this and operator again, not empty contact email. So empty is basically checking if this value is equal to null, and not is saying we don't want it to be empty, so we're making sure this is equal to true by saying we don't want it to be empty. So we're saying and not empty contact underscore text. So let's go down now, and inside here we need to do something if these do exist or these do equal something. So for now I'm just going to echo out OK. Okay, so let's go and try and submit the form without any data. Okay, now let's put, say, A, B and C in here, click send, and that's okay, so that's worked. What we can actually do is specify an error message if these are or if one of them are empty. Well, in fact, no, these are going to be or, because what we're doing is we're checking if either of them, or if one out of the 3 of them is empty. So we need to use this or instead of and. So I'm going to echo here, if else, I'm going to say all fields are required. Okay, so let's click Save Changes and see what happens here. So let's click Send, all fields are required. Now we can type A, B or C, or and C, and click OK. So if we were just type in A and B here, and we click Send, oh, we're still getting, oh no, sorry, my mistake completely. These should be and. Now the reason I got confused there is because what we would do is if this if statement was if empty, empty, we would say if empty contact name or empty contact email, but we're saying not empty and we don't want any of them to be empty. So many apologies for that. Okay, so if they are not empty, what do we want to do? Well, that's easy. We want to send an email to ourselves. So let's go in here. We need to first of all set a few variables up. So we need to say 2 is equal to something. And that's just going to be my email address. So I'm going to be sending this to my own email address. Since it's a contact us form, the inquiries are going to come to me. So this is my email address. The next one is the subject. So I'm just going to predefine the subject as contact form submitted, just to let me know when I receive an email the subject is contact form submitted, what this going to do is it's going to just let me know that a contact form has been submitted. That's all basically. It's up to you what you set the header to. Now the body is going to equal the contact text, so the text that the user has entered in this text field here. And we are going to also set headers, and the headers is just going to be from, and then the email address is going to come here. So why do we do this? So I'll just put the variable in first, so contact email. Now what this is going to do is when I receive the email on my Squirrel Mail client here, when I get the email, it's going to say it's from and the email address that the user actually typed in the HTML form. This way what I can do is I can quickly press reply and it will set up a reply to this email address where it came from. So it's a really nifty way of being able to quickly, instantly reply to a user after you've had a contact form submitted. And if you don't understand what I mean, then I'll show you a bit later when I actually receive the email. So everything seems set up now. We've got the contact text in there, we've got from, and we need also the contact name. So we can put this anywhere really. We could say body equals contact name, and then we can append onto it. Remember, when we want to do a line break, we need to use double quotation marks. So we can append a line break on there. So we'll have the contact's name and then a line break and then what they've written in the form. So now that we've got each value here, we can use the mail function. So mail, the parameters are first of all who it's to, and then the subject, and then the body, and then the headers. But what we want to do is we want to double check that the email has actually been sent. So we can enclose this in an if statement. And what this does is if this returns true, it means the mail has been successfully sent. So we can echo out a confirmation message. And we can say if mail, then echo mail, or thanks for contacting us. We'll remember to escape that character there because we're using single quotation marks, and we used a single quotation mark inside a string with single quotation marks. We'll be in touch soon, for example. Otherwise, we want to let them know that we couldn't send the mail at this time. We're not going to be echoing out any errors, so we want to put an @ sign in front of the mail. So if this does return any errors, we're not actually displaying these to the user. So now we can say echo, sorry, an error occurred. Oh, I've spelled occurred wrong. Please try again later. Okay, so if the mail is sent and we're silencing this, so if we do receive any errors from this, it won't be displayed to our user. We're going to say thanks for contacting us, we'll be in touch soon. The email will then be sent automatically even though it's inside an if condition. And then otherwise we're going to say sorry, an error occurred, please try again later. Let's go ahead and save the changes, and we'll come over to our contact form and test this out. So I've got my Squirrel Mail client open at the moment. This is a test email that came in earlier when I was testing this, so don't worry about that for now, but we'll fill out this form to see if we get an email back. So let's say Alex. My email address I'm going to set to alex@phpacademy.org, and here I'm going to say hi, just wondered how to well, we can write anything really, how to create a PHP file, something silly like that, because we're doing a PHP tutorial, so why not. So now let's click send. Thanks for contacting us, we'll be in touch soon. Let's go over to Squirrel Mail and click inbox, and you can see that I've got an email from alex@phpacademy.org. Remember, the email address that we are saying it's from is this email here that we filled out. Let's go ahead and click on it. Okay, so it says now Alex, this is the user that has submitted this form, so the name of the person that submitted the form. And then, like I said before, we're breaking down and we're saying hi, just wondered how to create a PHP file. So we've got the name of the user here, and we've got the body of the text that they filled out in the text area here. So now when we go to click reply here, what it'll automatically do is reply to the email address that the user supplied in here. So this is a really useful way of doing things, because then you also got their text here, their question that they asked here, and you can just come here and type in your reply here. So that's how to create a basic contact form in PHP. Now there's a couple of things that you need to take into account before you actually put this on a public server. We don't have a max length for name, nor do we have a max length for email address or message. So you're going to need to use the strlen function to see what size these values are at. You could say set a message size of 1,000, so no more than 1,000 or 2,000 characters. Email address I'd say no more than 50 characters, and name I'd say no more than 30 characters, or 25 at a push. So you can go inside your code and you can use an if statement to check the length of each thing. In fact, we may as well do that now. So let's say inside here, if we wanted to check the string length, let's go ahead and after we've checked for empty, I'm going to say if strlen of contact name is greater than, so we said about 25 for that, then we want to return an error. So if strlen of contact name is greater than 25, we can put these all in the same string for now, just to save a bit of time. In the same condition, I mean, to save a bit of time. So if the string length of contact name is greater than 25, or the string length of contact email is greater than 50, or the string length of contact text is greater than 1,000, for example, then we want to echo out an error. Now I would indent the rest of my code because what we're going to do is we're going to say else and then run the rest of this code here if we don't receive an error. Let's just work out where to put this. We've got an if here, an if here, so that is going to go, all fields are required, that is going to go in here. So I would indent all of this code here, but unfortunately this text editor that I'm using on cPanel at the moment forbids me to indent code quickly. So I'm just going to keep it messy for now, but always remember to properly indent your code. Okay, so echo, and we want to say, sorry, max length for each field exceeded, or for some field has been exceeded. Now, why are we giving such a general error message? Let's just go ahead and test this out beforehand. Oh, swapping tabs around there. Okay, so let's type loads and loads of characters into here, and loads and loads and loads of characters into here, and then we'll just say hi in the message. Sorry. Click send. Sorry, max length for some field has been exceeded. Okay, so now what we want to do is inside our HTML is we want to set max length on depending on what we've done here. So we've got 25 for name, 50 for email, and 1,000 for our text area. So let's go ahead and do this. For name, max length equals 25. Contact email max length equals 50. And for the text area, max length equals 1,000. So now what we're doing is we're forbidding on the HTML for a user to enter anything more than the characters we've specified. So if you watch me just randomly type stuff in here now, it's stopped. I'm still typing and it's not working. So the only way that we're ever going to produce this error message that we've defined in here is if the user somehow tries to cheat this and remove these max lengths by storing the file and submitting the data from their local computer, by saving the HTML file and resubmitting it, or from a server, but either way. So we've created that error message just for a bit of security, so we don't get a lot of sort of mail through with long string lengths in there. The other thing to bear in mind is that you might want to add a capture a capture form or a security validation image, however you want to describe it. And the reason for this is you have bots that will go around and they will pick up on things like this and they will send you junk. So there is a tutorial on the New Boston's channel that I've created with a GD image library, and that allows you to create a capture image, if you like, or a security image. So go and have a look at this, but that's just a few security warnings about this code as it is. It will allow bots to submit it because we don't have any validation characters that we can type in. Okay, so that's basically a contact form in PHP. Sorry that we've been using a horrible text editor and we haven't been able to indent properly, but I do recommend you always indent and take into account the security issues that I've also spoken about on this video as well. Hi, this is Alex from phpacademy.org, and this is a PHP video tutorial for the New Boston. Now this is a quick introduction to XML. Now some of you may have heard XML, some of you may not, but XML is becoming an integral part of the internet in how we transfer and pick up data from different websites, and also how we can transfer data from, say, a database to another database using custom tags inside an XML file. Now XML stands for Extensible Markup Language, and it is a markup language, so it's similar to HTML in the way that we use markup tags. So let's just give you an example here. In HTML we would define our HTML tags like this, where in XML what we can do is we create custom tags that allow us to specify data and pick up data using different tags. So for example, I might have a name tag, and we end it exactly the same as we do, and this name tag might be Alex, and we might have this inside producer tag. And then what we might have is many producers, so we might in fact have a few names down the list. And then we might have inside these different producers and information about different producers. So we might have this outside tag as producers, and inside we might have, let's just get rid of everything, we might have producer, and then that there, and then inside we might have name. Ooh. And then what we can do is we can duplicate this and have another producer and another producer, so we can change these values here. Ooh. Now this may all look odd and may not make sense at first. However, what we have done here is we've created a structured way of displaying our data. Now if I was to say to someone, if you open up an XML file, at the moment I'm working with a PHP file, so pretend this is .xml. If this was an XML document and I said to someone, okay, well bring up the second and third producer, what we'd be able to is access these tags. So we'd be able to access the producers tag first of all, and then coming through and say, we'd have, say, feed this into an array, and we'd be able to select just this information, the name and the age of the two last producers. So it's a great way to transfer data around the web and in a format that's recognizable depending on what tags you've used, so you can have an agreement of what tags are and which tags are required or not. So this XML data, we can read it in through different web applications and software applications. However, why is it useful to us as PHP programmers? Now, you may have noticed that, or may know that Facebook, things like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all have preset XML files for different users. So for example, let's just bring up an example of a YouTube XML document. Now it's not correctly structured in terms of indenting and things like that, but if we go down we can start to see information about videos from the user PHP Academy. So we've got if you look carefully you can see things like, let's just have a look. Okay, you've got a description, so you've got a description there of a video, and if you come down you've got some more information, and you can see that we've got these media tags here. You've got let's just go up. There should be some more around. It's quite hard to see this because it's very yeah, so there we've got author there. This is just general information from this API document, but if we go down we can see there's an extensive amount of data in here, but it all can be read in using PHP. Now what we're going to do is we're going to work with creating our own simple XML files and reading them in and learning how to read them in. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take an example of a data feed from either YouTube or another social networking site that we can access a user's feeds, for example, from Twitter and things like that. And we are going to read in things like that. So now that you know what XML is, you can go away and fiddle around with different websites and how they produce their XML. Have a careful look at it. Some might be structured, some might be not, like this. And then in the next lessons we can start reading this data in, and in fact then we can start storing this data once we know the structure of our XML document. And we can simply write an XML file using file handling, so we can output different lines to the file depending on the tags that we've specified. So I won't be going through how to write your own XML file, but we will be looking extensively at reading in XML files and then how to read in data like this.